Bullies push boy to the ground, unknowing his father is an FBI agent. Ethan Miller felt the hot asphalt of the schoolyard against his hands as he was pushed for the third time that week. His knees burned, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the humiliation he felt while hearing the laughter of Brandon, Tyler, and Connor. "Look, the baby fell again," Brandon shouted, striking a heroic pose while the other two laughed behind him. The boy in the grey shirt tried to get up when he felt another shove, this time harder. "Stay right there on the ground where you belong." Ethan bit his lower lip to keep from crying. He was only 10 years old, but had already learned that tears only made things worse. The schoolyard at Lincoln Elementary School in Denver was packed as usual during recess, but no one seemed to notice what was happening in that corner near the courts. "Please, leave me alone," Ethan murmured, trying to grab his lunchbox, which had fallen and spilled the sandwich his mother had made with such care. Tyler, the boy in the blue shirt, deliberately stepped on the sandwich. "Oops, my bad, or not." He burst into laughter along with Connor, who was wearing red. What none of them knew was that at that very moment across town, FBI Special Agent Michael Miller was receiving a call that would change the course of this story in ways no one could imagine. Michael had been undercover for months in a covert operation, and his identity as Ethan's father was a closely guarded secret. Not even his wife Jennifer knew the details of his current assignment. "Jennifer?" Michael answered the phone, recognizing his wife's number. "What's wrong?" "Michael, I just got a call from the school." Jennifer's voice trembled. "Ethan is in the nurse's office again. They said he fell in the yard, but I know that's not what happened." The federal agent felt his blood boil. This was the 5th time in 2 weeks. He knew the signs. He had been trained to recognize behavioral patterns, and he knew his son was being bullied. "I'm on my way," Michael said, his controlled voice hiding the storm brewing inside him. Meanwhile, in the school nurse's office, Ethan was sitting on a cot with a bandage on his knee. The nurse, Mrs. Johnson, a grey-haired woman with gold-rimmed glasses, cleaned his wounds with motherly care. "Sweetheart, you need to tell me what's going on," she said gently. "These falls are becoming too frequent." Ethan shook his head. Brandon had made it very clear what would happen if he spoke up. And worse, Tyler had an older brother in 8th grade who would make his life a living hell. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the nurse's office door opened and Jennifer rushed in. Her eyes filled with tears when she saw her son hurt again. She was a strong woman, a high school literature teacher, but seeing her only child suffering was breaking. Her. "Sweetheart, what happened?" Jennifer hugged Ethan tightly. "I fell, Mom, that's all." Ethan stuck to his lie, but Jennifer knew her son too well. Outside the school, Michael parked his unremarkable car, an essential part of his cover. On the outside, he looked like just another concerned dad. A plain dress shirt, jeans, nothing to suggest he was one of the most decorated FBI agents specializing in intelligence operations. As he entered the school, Michael went straight to the principal's office. He had known Principal Margaret for years. She had been his elementary school teacher. The woman in her early 60s greeted him with a tight hug. "Michael, it's been so long. I heard you were working as a security consultant now," Margaret said, unaware of his true profession. "Margaret, we need to talk about Ethan." Michael went straight to the point. "I know he's being bullied, and I need it to stop." The principal sighed deeply, adjusting her glasses. "Michael, I understand your concern, but without concrete evidence or Ethan identifying the bullies, my hands are tied. We've already spoken to all the classes about bullying, but it's not working," Michael finished. "Margaret, my son is suffering. I need more than generic lectures." Just then, the secretary knocked on the door. "Principal, Brandon. Thompson's parents are here for their scheduled meeting." Michael felt his investigator instincts kick in. Brandon Thompson. He recognized that last name from somewhere, but couldn't place it. "Give me a minute, Michael," Margaret said. "I need to attend to these parents, but I promise we'll find a solution." As Margaret left, Michael took the opportunity to observe the school's activity. Years of training had taught him to notice details others overlooked. That's when he spotted 3 boys running down the hallway, laughing and shoving each other. The tallest one wore a grey shirt. Something about their behavior caught his attention. The way they carried themselves, the arrogance in their posture, how other students moved aside when they passed. Michael had seen this pattern before, in juvenile criminals he'd investigated. Jennifer appeared in the hallway with Ethan. The boy was downcast, holding his mother's hand. When he saw his father, his eyes lit up for a second before returning to their sad expression. "Dad!" Ethan ran to hug him. "Hey, champ," Michael hugged his son, noticing how he flinched when he touched his back, more bruises hidden under his clothes. "Let's go home," Jennifer said, her voice heavy with worry. "We need to talk." On the way to the parking lot, they passed the 3 boys Michael had noticed earlier. Ethan immediately hid behind his father, and Michael needed no further confirmation. It was them. Brandon, the group's leader, looked at Ethan with a malicious grin. "See you tomorrow, little Ethan," he said mockingly. Michael felt every muscle in his body tense. His years of combat training and emotional control were put to the test. Jennifer squeezed his arm, sensing the tension. "Come on, Michael," she whispered. "Not here." At home, a modest 2-story house in the Cherry Creek neighborhood, the family gathered in the living room. Ethan went to his room at his parents' request. They needed to talk. "Jennifer, this can't go on," Michael said, pacing. "Our son. Gaz being tortured psychologically and physically." "I know," Jennifer burst into tears. "Do you think I don't see it? I watch my son wither a little more each day. He doesn't want to go to school. He's not eating right. He has nightmares." "Why hasn't he told us who they are?" Michael asked, though he already knew the answer. "Fear," Jennifer said simply. "They must have threatened him." "Michael, we need to do something, but what? We can't just confront 10-year-olds. Michael sat beside his wife, pulling her into a hug. What she didn't know was that Brandon Thompson, the bully tormenting their son, was the nephew of Richard Thompson, one of the targets of his current operation. The irony was cruel. While he investigated the uncle for financial crimes, the nephew was torturing his son. "I'll handle this," Michael promised, "but I need to do it the right way." That night, after Jennifer and Ethan were asleep, Michael accessed the Federal Bureau of Investigation systems from his home office. He couldn't use official resources for personal matters, but he could run some basic checks. Brandon Thompson, age 11. Father, Christopher Thompson, businessman. Mother, Jessica Thompson, attorney, sister of Richard Thompson, the man Michael had been investigating for months for money laundering and currency evasion. The web was getting more complicated. If Michael acted against Brandon, he could jeopardize the entire operation. Months of undercover work down the drain. But as a father, how could he stand by and watch his son suffer? The next day, Michael decided to act, but unofficially. He took a day off, something rare in his line of work, and decided to watch the school. He parked in a strategic spot where he could see the playground during recess. What he saw broke his heart. Ethan was trying to keep to himself, sitting on a bench away from the others, reading a book. But Brandon and his gang wouldn't leave him alone. They approached like predators circling their prey. Michael saw Brandon grab Ethan's book and toss it into a puddle. He saw Tyler shove his son when he tried to retrieve the book. He saw Connor recording everything on his phone, laughing. But he also saw something else. He saw a girl approach after the bullies left, a black girl with pigtails who helped Ethan pick up the wet book and offered him tissues. He saw his son smile for the first time in weeks. The girl's name was Zoe, Michael would later learn, daughter of a nurse at the hospital where Jennifer sometimes taught tutoring classes, a brave child who wasn't afraid of the bullies. "Why? Did you help me?" Ethan asked the girl that day. "Now they'll pick on you too." "Because it's the right thing to do," Zoe replied simply. "My mom always says we have to be the change we want to see in the world." "But you'll get hurt because of me," Ethan insisted. "Then we'll get hurt together." Zoe smiled. "Better than you getting hurt alone." From the car, Michael watched the scene with mixed emotions. Pride at seeing good kids like Zoe, anger at the bullies, frustration at not being able to act immediately. His phone rang. It was his superior at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. "Miller, we need you. We've got a lead on Thompson." The agent's voice was urgent. I'm off duty today, sir, Michael replied, his eyes still on the schoolyard. Off duty? You? The agent laughed. Miller, in 15 years you've never taken a day off. What's going on? Personal matters, sir. I'll be available tomorrow. Michael? The agent's tone changed. Is this about your son? I heard he's been having trouble at school. Michael was surprised. How did his boss know? Margaret Reynolds is my cousin, the agent explained. She mentioned you were there yesterday. Michael, if you need help. Thank you, sir. But I need to handle this my way. Just don't do anything rash. You're one of my best agents, and remember, our target's nephew is involved in this. So his boss had connected the dots too. Michael hung up, his mind racing through possibilities. How could he solve Ethan's problem without compromising the operation? The answer came from an unexpected source. That afternoon, Jennifer came home with an idea. Michael, I met Zoe's mother at the hospital today, she said excitedly. Tanya is an amazing woman. Head nurse in pediatrics, a single mother, and she has fantastic ideas for dealing with bullying. The girl who helped Ethan? Michael asked. Yes. Tanya told me Zoe was bullied when she was younger too. They came up with strategies together. She offered to help us. Michael was intrigued. A nurse with experience handling bullying might be exactly what they needed. The meeting was set for the weekend at a downtown cafe. Tanya arrived with Zoe, and Ethan immediately brightened up at the sight of his friend. Tanya was a woman in her early 40s with a warm smile and eyes that radiated wisdom and strength. She shook Michael's hand firmly. So you're the famous father of Ethan, she said. Zoe won't stop talking about your son. Says he's the smartest boy in school. And the bravest, Zoe added. Even though he gets picked on every day, he never snitched on them. That's not bravery, sweetheart, Tanya corrected gently. Sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing of all. As the children went off to play in a corner of the cafe, the adults talked. Tanya, Jennifer told me you've dealt with these situations before, Michael began. Unfortunately, yes, Tanya sighed. When Zoe was 6, we moved cities. She was the only black child in her class and suffered a lot. I tried everything, talking to the school, the parents, nothing worked. What did you do? Jennifer asked. First, I got Zoe psychological help. She needed to process the trauma. Second, I taught her verbal defense techniques, not violence, but ways to respond that take power away from bullies. Third, I built a support network with other parents whose kids were going through the same thing. Michael listened carefully. Tanya's approach was strategic, almost military in its precision. But the most important thing, Tanya continued, was working on Zoe's self-esteem. Bullies target those they see as weak. When a child grows stronger inside, they lose interest. Seems like it worked, Jennifer observed, watching Zoe laugh with Ethan. It took time, Tanya admitted, and it wasn't easy. There were setbacks, moments of despair, but today, Zoe is a confident child who isn't afraid to stand up for others. Would you like to form a support group? Jennifer suggested. I'm sure there are other parents in the same situation. That's a wonderful idea, Tanya agreed, but we need to be careful. We don't want to create a vigilante group, just a mutual support system. Michael stayed quiet, taking it all in. His FBI agent instincts wanted a quick, decisive solution, but the father in him was starting to understand this required patience. In the weeks that followed, many things happened at once. Jennifer and Tanya began organizing informal meetings with other parents. Michael, using his investigative skills, discreetly documented bullying incidents, not just against Ethan, but other children too. Ethan, with Zoe's support, started gaining confidence. The girl was like a human shield. Her constant presence made the bullies think twice. Not that they stopped completely, but the frequency lessened. A month after this new approach began, something unexpected happened. Michael was on a surveillance operation targeting Richard Thompson when he saw Richard's brother, Christopher, father of Brandon, leaving a building known for housing creative accounting firms. This wasn't in the records. Christopher Thompson, as far as they knew, was a clean businessman. But there he was, carrying boxes of documents to his luxury car. Michael took discreet photos and reported it to his superior. The investigation had just taken a new turn. The Thompson brothers were working together. At home that night, Michael wrestled with a moral dilemma. He now had information that could be used against Brandon's family, but using his professional position to settle personal matters went against everything he believed in. Jennifer noticed his unease. "What's going on? You've been off since you got home." "Nothing, just work," Michael deflected. "Michael Miller, we've been married 15 years. "I know when you're lying," Jennifer crossed her arms. Before he could answer, Ethan walked into the room crying. "What happened, sweetheart?" Jennifer rushed to hug him. "Bib Brandon found out Zoe's my friend," Ethan sobbed. "He said he's going to do something awful to her tomorrow, teach her not to interfere." Michael felt his blood run cold. One thing was their son suffering, another was an innocent child, being targeted for trying to help. "What exactly did he say?" Michael asked, his professional tone taking over. "He said—" Ethan hesitated. "He said his 8th grade cousin and his friends are going to get her after school. That they'll cut her hair and throw mud on her to teach her that." Ethan couldn't finish. Jennifer turned pale. "My God, Michael, this is racial harassment too. We need to call the police." Michael was already reaching for his phone, but not to call the regular police. He dialed Tanya. "Tanya, it's— Michael, is Zoe there?" His voice was urgent. "She is. Why? What happened?" Michael explained the situation. He could hear Tanya's quickened breath on the other end. "No way I'm letting this happen," Tanya said firmly. "Tomorrow, I'll pick Zoe up from school myself." "I'll go with you," Michael said. "Jennifer, too, will form a protective barrier. And I'll alert the other parents in the group," Jennifer added. "It's time to show we're not alone." The next day, something extraordinary happened at Lincoln Elementary School. When the final bell rang, it wasn't just the children leaving. A line of parents waited at the gate, all part of the support group Jennifer and Tanya had created. Brandon and his older cousin, along with 4 other big boys, stopped in surprise at the sight. They had expected to find Zoe alone and vulnerable. Instead, they faced a wall of protective adults. Principal Margaret, alerted by Jennifer, was also present. "Brandon Thompson and Gregory Thompson, I want both of you in my office now," she ordered firmly. "We didn't do anything," Gregory protested. "Not yet," Margaret replied. "But we have reports of threats, and that is unacceptable in my school." Christopher Thompson arrived minutes later, summoned by the principal. His face showed irritation. "Principal, this is ridiculous." "My boys are exemplary," he began. "Mr. Thompson," Margaret interrupted, "we have witnesses and documented reports of inappropriate behavior. If you don't cooperate, I'll be forced to involve Child Protective Services." Michael watched, from a distance, resisting the urge to step in. That's when he noticed something curious. Christopher Thompson was far too nervous for a father defending innocent children. His hands trembled, and he kept glancing at his phone. Tanya approached Michael. "Thank you for rallying everyone." Zoe was moved to see so much support. "Jennifer did most of it," Michael replied. "She has a gift for bringing people together." Just then, his phone vibrated. It was a message from his partner at the Federal Bureau of Investigation. "Richard, Thompson was just seen entering the same building where you photographed Christopher yesterday. Something big is happening." Michael had to make a quick decision. His professional duty called, but his son needed him here. "Tanya, I need to leave for a few hours," he said. "Can you stay with Ethan and Jennifer?" "Of course, but is everything all right?" "Urgent work," was all Michael said before hurrying off. The surveillance operation revealed more than they expected. The Thompson brothers were destroying documents, clearly in panic. Something had tipped them off about the investigation. In the weeks that followed, events accelerated on multiple fronts. At school, after the parents' show of unity, the bullying against Ethan dropped drastically. Brandon and his friends seemed intimidated by the adults' organization. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, the support group created by Jennifer and Tanya grew, now including 15 families. They held weekly meetings where they shared experiences and strategies. Ethan began therapy with a child trauma specialist recommended by Tanya. But the real transformation was happening within Ethan. With Jennifer's support and the group's protection, he started to stand his ground. When Brandon tried to provoke him in the hallway, Ethan didn't lower his head. "I'm not afraid of you," Ethan said, his voice trembling but firm. Brandon laughed. "You should be. My dad's important, yours is nobody." "My dad is my hero," Ethan replied, "and that's more important than anything your dad is." The response caught Brandon off guard. He was used to fear, not calm defiance. Meanwhile, the Federal Bureau of Investigation's case was moving quickly. Evidence against the Thompson brothers piled up. Michael discovered that Brandon's bullying at school followed the same pattern as his family's criminal behavior: intimidation, abuse of power, silencing victims. One evening, Jennifer found Michael in his office reviewing documents. "You've been working too much," she said, massaging his shoulders. "It's almost over," Michael replied, unable to share details. "Ethan's doing better," Jennifer remarked. "Yesterday, he told me he wants to invite some classmates to his birthday." "Really?" Michael smiled. For months, Ethan hadn't wanted to celebrate anything. "Yes, Zoe, of course, and 3 other kids who were also bullied. They formed a little friend group. Strength in numbers," Michael observed. "Tanya calls it a circle of courage." Jennifer laughed. "She always has a name for everything." Michael's phone rang. It was urgent. The operation would launch in 48 hours. The day of the raid coincided with a school performance Ethan was in. Michael promised to be there but knew he might not make it. On the morning of the operation, before sunrise, Michael was getting ready to leave when Ethan appeared in the kitchen. "Dad, why are you up so early?" "Work, champ, but I'll try to make it to your performance." "Okay," Ethan said, then ran to hug him. "Dad, thank you for everything. I know you've done a lot to protect me, things I don't even know about." Michael felt his eyes well up. "I'll always protect you, champ, always." The operation was a success. Richard and Christopher Thompson were arrested, along with 15 others involved in the scheme. The news exploded in the media, though Michael's name was kept confidential for safety. At school, the impact was immediate. Brandon arrived with his head down, his usual arrogance gone. For the first time, he was vulnerable, scared. During recess, something unexpected happened. Ethan approached Brandon, who was sitting alone in a corner. "Hey," Ethan said simply. Brandon looked up, surprised. "What do you want? Here to gloat?" "No," Ethan sat beside him. "I came to see if you're okay." "Why?" Brandon couldn't understand. "I made your life hell." "Because someone has to break the cycle," Ethan repeated something Tanya had said. "In the support group. Hate just makes more hate." Zoe joined them. "We know what it's like to feel alone and afraid," she told Brandon. Tyler and Connor watched from a distance, unsure how to act without their leader. "My dad." Brandon started crying. "My dad got arrested. My mum won't stop crying. Everyone hates me now." "We don't hate you," Ethan said. "But you have to change. You have to stop hurting people." I don't know how to be different," Brandon admitted. "My dad always said I had to be strong to dominate others." "Strength isn't about dominating," Zoe said with wisdom beyond her years. "It's about protecting those who need it." At that moment, Tyler and Connor hesitantly approached. We're really sorry, Ethan," Tyler said. "We just followed Brandon." "That's no excuse," Connor added quickly, "but it's the truth. Without him giving orders, we don't know. We don't want to be like this anymore." Michael arrived just in time for the presentation. He saw his son on stage, reciting a poem about courage and friendship that he had written himself. He saw Zoe by his side, and surprisingly, Brandon, Tyler, and Connor were also in the group. Jennifer squeezed his hand. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it for anything," Michael replied, moved. Tanya was sitting in the front row, proudly filming everything. Other parents from the support group were also there, creating a real cheering section. After the presentation, Principal Margaret took the stage. "I'd like to take this moment to announce a new program at our school," she said. "Inspired by the courage of some students and the dedication of parents like Jennifer Miller and Tanya Johnson, we're creating the Peace Guardians program." She explained it would be a program where students would be trained to mediate conflicts, offer support to struggling peers, and promote a more welcoming school environment. And I'd like to invite our first group of peace guardians, Margaret continued. Ethan Miller, Zoe Johnson, and, surprisingly, 3 students who've shown real transformation: Brandon Thompson, Tyler Parker, and Connor Wilson. The auditorium erupted in applause. Brandon seemed stunned by the chance for redemption. In the months that followed, the change was remarkable. Brandon, dealing with his father's arrest and the collapse of his world, found unlikely friends in Ethan and Zoe, who helped him rebuild his identity. Brandon's mother, Jessica, initially resistant, eventually joined Jennifer and Tanya's support group. At one meeting, she tearfully apologized to all the parents whose children Brandon had hurt. "I failed as a mother," she said between sobs. "I saw the signs but chose to ignore them. I cared more about appearances than my son's well-being or anyone else's." Jennifer hugged her. "We've all failed at some point. What matters is what we do when we realize our mistakes." The Peace Guardians program became a model for other schools in the area. Ethan, once the silent victim, became an outspoken voice against bullying. Brandon, the former bully, became one of the most dedicated advocates for school peace, using his experience to identify and intervene in bullying situations. Michael, after the success of the operation, received a promotion. But more important than any professional recognition was seeing his son turn pain into purpose. One Sunday afternoon, 6 months after that fateful day in the schoolyard, the Miller, Johnson, Thompson, Parker, and Wilson families had a picnic at Washington Park. It was surreal to see children who were once enemies playing together. I would have thought," Tanya remarked to Jennifer. "From such a difficult situation, something beautiful was born." "Pain can break us or make us stronger," Jennifer replied. "We chose the latter." Michael watched Ethan teach Brandon to play chess with Zoe, Tyler, and Connor looking on. His phone rang. It was his boss with a new assignment. He glanced at the screen, then at his extended family, and made a decision. "Sir, I'll need some time off first," he said. "I have important commitments here." Jessica Thompson approached him after the call. "Michael, I know you had something to do with my husband's investigation." Michael tensed. "Don't get me wrong," she continued. "It was the best thing that could have happened. Christopher had been on the wrong path for years, and he was taking Brandon with him. His arrest saved my son from a much worse future." "Jessica, Michael began. "You don't have to say anything," she interrupted. "I just want to thank you for being the father figure my son needed, even if indirectly." A year later, Lincoln Elementary School was recognized by the Department of Education as a model school in combating bullying. Ethan was invited to speak at other schools about his experience. At one of these talks, a boy raised his hand. "But how did you forgive someone who hurt you so much?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to carry the weight of hatred." Brandon. "Hurt me, yes, but he was also hurting. When we understand another's pain, it becomes easier to forgive." Brandon, who was in the audience supporting his friend, had tears in his eyes. The journey of transformation wasn't easy or quick. There were setbacks, moments of doubt, days when the past felt too heavy to bear. But with support, persistence, and courage, they proved that adversity could be turned into opportunity. Michael continued his career at the Federal Bureau of Investigation, but with a new perspective. His personal experience made him more empathetic, more aware of the collateral damage crime inflicts on families. Jennifer expanded the support group, creating an NGO dedicated to combating bullying in schools. Tanya became her right-hand woman, and together they impacted thousands of lives. The children grew up maintaining the friendship forged in adversity. Ethan became a psychologist, specializing in childhood trauma. Zoe pursued a career in law, focusing on human rights. And Brandon, in a twist no one could have predicted, became a teacher, dedicated to creating safe and welcoming school environments. The courtyard where it all began was renovated and named Reconciliation Square. A discreet plaque tells the story of how enemies became friends and how the courage of one child to ask for help transformed an entire community. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, Take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 10 years had passed since that fateful day in the courtyard. Ethan, now 20, was in his third year of psychology at the University of Colorado. His life had taken turns he could never have imagined when he was that frightened. Boy being pushed to the ground. On a rainy June morning, Ethan received a surprising call. It was Brandon. "Ethan, I need your help." Brandon's voice was tense. "It's about my dad." Christopher Thompson had served his sentence and had been on parole for 6 months. Brandon had limited contact with him, still processing the traumas of his childhood. "What happened?" Ethan asked, already grabbing his car keys. "He's different. I think he's involved in something again. And there's a boy, Ethan. A boy the age we were, the son of one of his employees. I saw marks on him." Ethan felt a chill down his spine, history repeating itself. "Where are you?" "At my mom's house. She doesn't know I called you. I'm on my way." On the drive over, Ethan called his father. Michael, now a Federal Bureau of Investigation agent, answered immediately. "Dad, we have a situation," Ethan quickly explained. "I understand. I'll look into it discreetly. Ethan, be careful. Don't get directly involved." But Ethan knew he couldn't stand by. Not when another child was suffering. At the Thompsons' house, a 2-story home in the Cherry Creek neighborhood that Ethan knew well from his visits over the years, Jessica greeted him with a tight hug. She had aged gracefully, but the weight of the difficult years was visible. "Ethan, what a lovely surprise," she said, though her eyes showed worry. "Hi, Aunt Jessica, Brandon called me." Brandon appeared at the stairs, his face a mix of relief and anxiety. At 21, he had grown into a tall, strong man, but his eyes still carried shadows of the past. "Let's talk in my room," Brandon suggested. In the room, filled with pedagogy books and motivational posters, Brandon showed photos on his phone. "I took these discreetly. Look at Owen's arm. Those are signs of abuse, Ethan. I recognize it because I used to do that." The photos showed a boy around 10 years old with bruises clearly caused by adult hands. "My dad hired his father, Mr. Joseph, as a driver. The man is submissive, puts up with everything, and Owen—" Brandon paused, struggling with his words. "Owen reminds me of you, quiet, scared, always trying to hide." "Did you talk to him?" "I tried, but he runs when he sees me. I think my dad said something about me, maybe told him how I used to be." Ethan processed the information. The situation was delicate. Christopher Thompson had a record, but accusing him without solid proof could make everything worse. "We need to be careful," Ethan said. "First, we need to gain Owen's trust. Second, document everything. Third, involve the right authorities." "I want to help," Brandon said firmly. "I need to do this, Ethan. It's my chance to really make amends." At that moment, Zoe walked into the room. She had arrived as soon as Ethan called her. At 20, studying law, she had become a strong, determined young woman. "Sorry I'm late," she said. "What do we have?" They explained the situation. Zoe immediately switched into lawyer mode. "We need solid proof. Brandon, do you have access to your dad's house?" "Yes. He gave me a key. Wants me to visit more." "We can't break in," Ethan warned. "My dad was clear about that." "But we can visit legitimately," Zoe suggested. "Brandon can say he wants to improve their relationship. During the visits, we observe, talk to Owen if possible." Jessica knocked on the door. "Boys want lunch? I made lasagna." During lunch, the conversation was carefully casual, but Jessica wasn't naive. "You three are plotting something," she finally said. "Does it have to do with Christopher?" Brandon looked at his mother. "Mum, do you know Dad hired a new driver? Joseph, yes, a hard-working man, has a son who sometimes comes along. Have you noticed anything strange?" Ethan asked gently. Jessica set down her fork. "Now that you mention it." "The boy is very quiet, and once I saw Christopher yell at him for spilling soda in the car." "Just yelling," Zoe pressed lightly. "I didn't see anything else, but Christopher was different after prison. More bitter, more controlling." Brandon took his mother's hand. "Mom, I think Dad is hurting Owen." Jessica paled. "No, he wouldn't do that to another child." "Mom, he did it to me," Brandon said softly. "You know that." Tears streamed down Jessica's face. Hoped prison had changed him." "Some people don't change, Aunt Jessica," Ethan said. "But we can stop him from hurting anyone else." The plan went into action the following week. Brandon arranged dinner with his father, saying he wanted to rebuild their relationship. Ethan and Zoe would wait in the car, ready to act if needed. Christopher's house was a smaller mansion than before. The financial losses from his conviction were significant, but he still kept up appearances. Joseph, the driver, answered the door. "Good evening, Brandon," the man said visibly, uncomfortable. "Hi, Mr. Joseph, is my dad here?" "He's in the office, you can go in." Brandon noticed Owen sitting in a corner of the kitchen doing homework. The boy glanced up quickly, then looked back at his notebook. "Hi, Owen," Brandon said gently. The boy didn't respond. Christopher appeared in the hallway. "Brandon, glad you came. Joseph served dinner in half an hour." During the tense dinner, Brandon kept the conversation light while watching the interactions. Christopher treated Joseph with clear disdain, barking orders. Owen ate silently in the kitchen, separate from them. "Dad, why doesn't Owen eat with us?" Brandon ventured. "Everyone has their place," Christopher replied coldly. "It's important to maintain order. He's just a kid." "A child who needs to learn discipline," Christopher said, and something in his tone sent a shiver down Brandon's spine. "Like you learned." "I didn't learn discipline, Dad. I learned fear." Christopher laughed bitterly. "Same thing." After dinner, Brandon excused himself to use the bathroom and took the chance to look for Owen. He found the boy sitting, alone in the backyard. "Owen, can I sit with you?" The boy shrugged. Brandon sat down, keeping a respectful distance. "You know, when I was your age, I was scared too," Brandon began. "I'm not scared," Owen muttered. "It's okay to be scared. I was scared of my dad. Sometimes I still am." Owen looked at him surprised. "But he's your dad." "Yeah, but that doesn't mean he always did the right thing. Owen, if someone's hurting you, no one is." Owen stood abruptly. "I fell. That's all." Mr. Joseph appeared at the door. "Owen, let's go, it's late." Brandon saw panic flash in the boy's eyes. "Mr. Joseph, can I talk to you for a minute?" "Shaitan, Mr. Christopher doesn't like delays. Just a minute." Mr. Joseph hesitated, then sent Owen to the car. "What is it, Brandon? You know you can ask for help, right? If you need it." Mr. Joseph looked down. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Mr. Joseph, I grew up in this house. I know how my dad can be." "If he's hurting your son." "He gave me a job when no one else would," Mr. Joseph interrupted. "I have a record, Brandon, an old theft conviction. Your father was the only one who gave me a chance. That doesn't give him the right to hurt." "Owen, he says he's teaching discipline, that Owen needs to be strong. Do you believe that?" Mr. Joseph began crying silently. "No, but what can I do? If I lose this job, how will I support my son? His mother's gone, it's just me." Brandon handed him a card. "This is the number of a friend, attorney Zoe Johnson. She can help, and this is my number. Call me anytime." In the car, Brandon told Ethan and Zoe everything. "We need to act fast," Zoe said, "but Mr. Joseph is right to be afraid. With his record, his situation is vulnerable." "My dad might be able to help," Ethan suggested. "I'll talk to him." Michael listened carefully with a professional demeanor. "It's a delicate situation. We need Mr. Joseph's testimony or clear physical evidence. Without it, Christopher could claim it's just discipline." "But it's abuse," Ethan protested. "I know, son, but the law needs proof. I'll assign someone to monitor discreetly. Meanwhile, stay in touch with Mr. Joseph." 2 days later, Brandon's phone rang in the middle of the night. It was Mr. Joseph, panicked. "Brandon, please, Owen's in the hospital. Christopher, he lost control." Brandon woke Ethan and Zoe. They rushed to Mercy General Hospital. Mr. Joseph was trembling in the waiting room. "What happened?" Brandon asked. "Owen knocked over an expensive vase. Christopher, Mr. Joseph couldn't continue. A doctor approached. "Mr. Joseph, your son is stable. Bruised ribs, some contusions, but nothing's broken. However, we need to talk about how these injuries happened. It was an accident, Mr. Joseph said automatically. Sir, I've been a doctor for 15 years. I know the signs of abuse. Zoe stepped in. Doctor, I'm an attorney. Can we speak privately? While Zoe spoke with the doctor, Ethan called Michael. Within an hour, the police and Child Protective Services were at the hospital. Christopher arrived soon after, furious. Joseph, what is this? Why involve the police? Enough, Dad. Brandon stepped between Christopher and Mr. Joseph. It's over. Brandon, what are you doing here? Christopher noticed Ethan and his expression shifted. You, the cop's son? Yes, Ethan said calmly. The boy you taught your son to torment. And now we're here to stop you from doing the same to another. You don't know anything, Christopher exploded. I'm just teaching discipline. Like you taught me? Brandon confronted his father. With punches and humiliation? The social worker interrupted. Mr. Thompson, I need you to come with me. We have some questions. Christopher looked around, realizing he was surrounded. This is harassment. I'll sue every one of you. Go ahead, Zoe said professionally. Meanwhile, we have a medical report, witnesses, and your history. Good luck. In the weeks that followed, the case grew larger. The investigation revealed that Christopher had developed a pattern of hiring vulnerable people to exert abusive control. Joseph and Owen received full support. Jennifer and Tanya immediately included them in the support group, now an established NGO. Joseph found a new job through the group's network, and Owen began therapy. On a sunny afternoon, in the same park where years earlier the families had held their reconciliation picnic, a new gathering took place. Owen played with other children from the support group while the adults talked. It's surreal, Brandon remarked, seeing the cycle almost repeat itself. But it didn't, Ethan pointed out. Because we acted, because we learned, and because you had the courage to do what was right, Zoe added, touching Brandon's shoulder. Joseph approached them. I don't know how to thank you. You saved my son. You saved your son, Brandon corrected. When you accepted help, my father never did that for me. Tyler and Connor arrived at the park. They had taken different paths. Tyler was a nurse, Connor worked in tech, but their friendship remained. We heard about the case, Tyler said. How can we help? You already are, Jennifer replied, joining the group. Each of you living better lives than what you were shown already helps. Tanya organized the children for a game. Her natural maternal instinct had helped dozens of families over the years. You know, she said, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we hadn't acted 10 years ago. I'd probably be a criminal, Brandon admitted. Or worse. I might have given up on everything, Ethan added. But you didn't. Michael appeared, still in his work suit. You turned pain into purpose. Christopher Thompson was sentenced to 5 years in prison for assault and child abuse. During the trial, Brandon testified against his own father, an act of courage that inspired other victims to come forward. Jessica, devastated but determined, dedicated herself to working with the NGO, using her experience as a lawyer to help families in similar situations. The case made headlines, leading to changes in child protection policies in the region. Owen's Law, as it came to be known, established stricter protocols for identifying and preventing child abuse. A year later, at a ceremony at Lincoln Elementary School, the Peace Guardians program celebrated its 10th anniversary. Ethan was invited as the keynote speaker. In the packed auditorium, he saw familiar faces and many new ones. Owen sat in the front row, proudly wearing his Junior Peace Guardians badge. 11 years ago, Ethan began, I was a scared boy being shoved around in this courtyard. Today, I stand here as a psychologist, a friend, and a survivor. The journey wasn't easy, but every step was worth it. He told the full story, without omitting the hard parts. He spoke about forgiveness, transformation, and the importance of breaking cycles. Bullying and abuse thrive in silence, Ethan said. When we speak up, when we act, when we come together, we take away their power. Each of you has that power. Use it. Brandon took the stage next. As a teacher at the school, he had become one of the most beloved educators. I was the bully, he said simply. I was the aggressor, and I'm here to say change is possible. But it starts with accountability, with admitting mistakes, with asking for help. Zoe, now a prosecutor specializing in children's rights, spoke about the importance of legal and institutional support. The event ended with a tribute to Jennifer and Tanya, the mothers who started it all with a simple support group. "We just did what any mother would do," Jennifer said emotionally. "We protected our children, and in the process we realized that all children are ours." 5 years later, in a twist no one could have predicted, Christopher Thompson asked to see Brandon. He was in his final year of prison, participating in a rehabilitation program. Brandon wrestled with the decision for weeks. It was Ethan who advised him. "You don't owe him anything," Ethan said, "but maybe you owe it to yourself, to close this chapter the way you want." In the prison visitation room, father and son faced each other. Christopher was thinner, older, but something in his eyes had changed. "Brandon," he began, his voice hoarse, "I joined a program here, therapy. For the first time, I understood what I did, to you, to that boy." Brandon remained silent. "I don't expect forgiveness," Christopher continued. "I know I don't deserve it, but I needed to say I'm sorry, to acknowledge the monster I was, that you became a better man despite me, not because of me." "Why now?" Brandon finally asked. "Because I met other men here, men who were abused children. I saw what happens when the cycle isn't broken, and I realized you broke it. You had the strength I never did." Brandon felt tears streaming down. "I had help, people who showed me another way. I know, I read about the work you all do. I'm proud isn't the right word, I don't have that right. But I'm relieved you found your path." The conversation lasted an hour. There were no hugs or dramatic reconciliation, but there was closure, a mutual acknowledgement that the past couldn't be changed, but the future was still being written. As he left the prison, Brandon found Ethan, Zoe, Tyler, and Connor waiting for him. They had insisted on coming. "How? Was it?" Zoe asked gently. "Hard, necessary. I think I can finally let go," Brandon replied. They went to the cemetery where Owen's mother was buried. Joseph and Owen were waiting there. It was the anniversary of her death, and they had made a tradition of visiting her together. Owen, now 15, had grown into a confident and kind young man. He placed flowers on the grave. "Mom, these are my guardian angels," he said simply. "The people who saved me and Dad." Joseph hugged his son. "Your mother would be proud of the man you're becoming. Thanks to you," Owen looked at the group, "all of you." As the sun set over Denver, the group stood together in respectful silence. Each carried scars, visible or not, but they had turned those marks into strength. Ethan's phone rang. It was an unknown number. "Dr. Ethan, my name is Ashley. I'm a teacher at a school in Chicago. We have a serious bullying case here and we heard about your work. Could you help us?" Ethan looked at his friends. They all nodded. "Of course," he replied. "Tell me what's happening." And so, the story continued. No longer just about a boy pushed on the playground, but about a network of people committed to ensuring no child suffered in silence. That evening, at a dinner at the Millers' home, the families celebrated another year of work. The table was full. The Millers, the Johnsons, Joseph and Owen, Jessica Thompson, the Parkers, the Wilsons, and many others who had joined the cause over the years. Michael raised a toast to what began in pain and turned into purpose, to the courage to ask for help, to the strength to offer help, and most of all, to the proof that love always conquers hate. "Always," everyone replied in unison. Jennifer watched the scene with tears in her eyes. From a desperate situation had emerged an extended family, a support community that had already touched hundreds of lives. "You know," she said to Tanya, "sometimes I wonder if everything happened for a reason." "Maybe," Tanya replied. "Or maybe we created the reason. We took something horrible and decided something good would come from it." Across the table, Ethan chatted enthusiastically with new volunteers about intervention strategies. His practice had become a leading center for childhood trauma. Brandon showed Owen photos of his students, proud of each of their achievements. He had become the teacher he wished he'd had. Zoe reviewed pro bono cases, always finding time to help families who couldn't afford legal assistance. Tyler and Connor had created an app for anonymous bullying reports, already implemented in dozens of schools. The transformation hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, moments of doubt, days when the past felt too heavy. But together they had proven that change was possible. As the evening wore on and conversations flowed, Owen approached Ethan. "Dr. Ethan, can I tell you something?" "Of course, Owen. I've decided what I want to be when I grow up." "Oh yeah? What?" "I want to be like you, all of you. I want to help kids who suffer like I did." Ethan smiled, moved. "You're already helping, Owen. Every day you choose to be kind, every time you stand up for someone, you're making a difference. But I want to do more." "Then we'll do more, together." The meeting lasted late into the night, with plans to expand the program to more cities. What had begun as a personal tragedy had become a movement. At the end of the evening, as everyone said their goodbyes, Brandon stopped Ethan at the gate. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." "Go ahead. You saved my life, not physically, but you saved me from becoming my father, from continuing the cycle. I'll never be able to thank you enough." "Brandon, you saved yourself. The moment you chose to change, you saved yourself." The two embraced. No longer aggressor and victim, but brothers by choice, united by a journey of transformation. As the cars drove away and the Miller house fell silent, Michael and Jennifer sat on the porch. "Our boy grew up," Jennifer said, leaning on her husband's shoulder. "They all grew up," Michael replied, "in ways we never imagined." "Do you regret anything?" Jennifer asked. "No, every decision, every hard moment brought us here. And here is exactly where we're meant to be." The legacy of the boy pushed on the playground had become something far greater than anyone could have imagined. It was no longer about one isolated incident, but about the human capacity to turn pain into healing, hate into love, and victims into heroes. And somewhere in Denver, Chicago, and dozens of other cities, children slept safer, knowing there were adults willing to protect them, to listen to them, to help them find their voice. The cycle had been broken, and a new one had begun, a cycle of protection, care, and unconditional love. Because in the end, that was the greatest lesson of all. That love, when shared and multiplied, has the power to heal the deepest wounds and create the brightest futures. The end of the story. And so we come to the end of this moving journey. Tell me, do you also believe it's possible to turn pain into purpose? Share your thoughts about the story and where you're watching from in the comments. If it touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear about hope and transformation. Thank you for being with us until the end. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more soul-warming stories.